Ow! Ow! Ow!
Throughout 2012 and 2013, TNA invited wrestlers to have tryout matches in a monthly segment which was live on TV, and they would then be allowed to cut a promo and voted on by TNA judges to see if they could be awarded a TNA contract. Then later on down the line, they mixed it up and had the wrestlers face each other to see who would win the contract. Just make sure you stay tuned to the end of the list. I can't believe what happened to some of these wrestlers after TNA Gut Check. Latex Pain and P1 Specialist are the new subscribers. Hell yeah! TNA Gut Check contestants, where are they now? Ryan Howe. This guy was actually a contestant on WWE Tough Enough Season 1, all the way back. This guy looked like a rip-off Van Hammer from WCW. He was corny as all hell and he wore a bandana in the ring. The dude's quite talented outside the ring, he plays 27 instruments, but that's not going to help him in the ring. He was beaten pretty easily by the Big O, who was Zack Ryder's little running buddy, and he was made to look pretty stupid in the ring, just getting slammed and kicked about all night. He was voted off by the judges, he sucked, and he's got a lame rockstar gimmick that's still going in 2019. Get a clue, Ryan Howe. You need to change your gimmick every so often to keep it interesting. And the man who faced him that evening was the Big O, or Adam O'Reiner. This guy was also on WWE Tough Enough, but he didn't make it through to the final 13. He was voted off because he sucked. This guy's buddies with Zack Ryder and regularly appeared on his web show. He destroyed Ryan Howe in his TNA Gut Check match, and he looked like an angry roider throughout the whole thing. I mean, look how ugly this guy is. He's all red like a hawk and he just looks like he's going to kill someone, and he's shaking and he's got acne popping out all over him. He's just not nice to look at. No wonder they didn't hire him. Judges said no flat out. You know, look at him. Since TNA Gut Check, he's not really doing too much. He's just wrestling on independents around New York. He's in New York. Magno, the luchador. He's going to be the new Rey Mysterio Jr. Or not. He wrestled in TNA in 2006, and he had the most awful match with Brian Cage on TNA Gut Check. It was absolutely ridiculous. He was botching left, right and centre. There was one point where he bounced off the ropes and slammed straight onto his neck. It was so painful to watch. The crowd were groaning with pain as they watched this match unfold. He lost the match. The judges flat out said no. He stunk up the place. I've seen an interview since where he described the match as special and said it's given him much happiness in life. Well, Magno, I'm glad it gives you happiness, because it didn't give any of us any happiness. It hurt, it stank, it sucked. He wasn't hired. He signed to WWE at one point, but they released him. He was on NXT. People thought he was good. I didn't. He doesn't seem to be wrestling anymore at this time. Good. Lady Tapa. She's the niece of the Barbarian. When she came into TNA, she'd only been in the ring for 2 years at this point. She was a greenhorn. She lost to Ivelisse Velez in her match, but was awarded the TNA contract anyway by the judges. Well, what's that all about? She lost. Well, I could see straight away the whole point in Lady Tapa winning was they wanted to build a new Awesome Kong 2.0. The problem was she wasn't as big or talented as Kong, and she just had a giant afro. She didn't really have a character either. She just kept throwing her arms up and screaming every 2 minutes. The crowd hated her. TNA tried to push her for the next year, but eventually had to release her for being too green. She wrestled for Jeff Jarrett in Global Force and joined in the GFW TNA invasion in 2015. She's also competed in NXT, although I don't think it was televised in 2017. And she hasn't wrestled since, because now she is a pro boxer. Fair play to you, Tapa. Brian Cage. He spent most of his time wrestling in the independents. There was quite a big fan following for him when he came into the TNA Gut Check. People were quite excited about this guy. He lost to Jay Bradley in his Gut Check match. He was not given a TNA contract and he returned to the independents. He's come back to TNA in 2018. He's more of a serious wrestler now, and he actually won the TNA X Division Championship. So fair play to him, alright? Adam Pearce. Spent most of his career before Gut Check in the independents, and people were also excited to see him. I don't know why, he was bold. There's never anything exciting about a bold person. He had an awful match with Magno, although to be fair I really wouldn't blame Adam Pearce for this. Magno just wasn't on his level. There was no doubt that Adam Pearce is a good wrestler. Adam Pearce did beat Magno, but he wasn't offered a contract. Basically it was Magno's fault and he screwed up Pearce's whole career by giving him such a crap match. He's since retired and worked for WWE as a producer in the Happy Midgets gang with Dean Malenko. Ivelisse Velez previously competed in WWE Tough Enough, but then had to leave due to a leg injury. She won the only women's gut check match, making her a kind of legend. She did quite impressive in her match with Tapa, considering who she was fighting, and she did some good little MMA moves, but then she lost in the vote, despite all the support online for Ivelisse Velez. She did go on to fight in TNA again on a one night only match, representing the Aces and Eights. So I guess things got worse for her after Gut Check. She's been in Lucha Underground since 2014, and she's now suing them along with Joey Ryan and others since February 2019. Jay Bradley. He wrestled in WWE as Ryan Braddock in 2008. What a run that was, it was truly magnificent. He defeated Brian Cage in his TNA Gut Check match, and then following his TNA Gut Check match he was put in a pointless tournament where he lost every single match bar one. He finished dead last, and then he was released in 2014. What was the point in any of that? He then returned in 2015 as Aidan O'Shea. He was suddenly Irish and wore a stupid hat. He did nothing for the next 2 years. Then he started being Billy Corben's bouncer, but that only lasted for a few weeks because Corben was out of the company. He wore a dumb hat. Oh, I think I've already mentioned that. Well, what else was his gimmick supposed to be? He was released in 2017 and wrestles mostly for OVW these days. He actually turned back up in TNA this February for one night only, losing in a 4-way match. So he's still a loser then. Wes Briscoe. I'm sick of talking about this guy. Every video I do has to have Wes Briscoe in it. He didn't do anything of note in the company for like 2 or 3 years, but why has he got to be in every single video? Because he had nothing better to do than cling to every tiny pointless thing in TNA and make it worse. Every bad thing in TNA involved Wes Briscoe. That is a fact. So I'm going to make it my mission, after this video, to not mention Wes Briscoe for a full 10 videos. How do you like that? Put this in the comments section. Keep a note of my videos. If I mention Wes Briscoe again, you can all scream at me. You can tell me to wear a silly hat in my next video. I don't really care. I hate Wes Briscoe. He was the first Gut Check contestant to actually win their match on TV. Because it was against Garrett Bischoff, of course. He had an on-screen friendship with Kurt Angle. Then he turned on Kurt Angle, joined the Aces and Eights. He did nothing for the next year apart from run around being pissed on by the rest of the Aces and Eights. Then he lost in a match to the Main Event Mafia and was kicked out of Aces and Eights by Bully Ray. He was given the pile driver, good riddance. Then he joined New Japan for a cup of coffee. He's just been wrestling in the independents since, and thus concludes the last time I have to mention Wes Briscoe for 10 videos. Christian York. One of the more successful competitors in TNA Gut Check. He actually had a bit of a career before he came into TNA Gut Check. He started off wrestling for the Omega Wrestling Federation, jumping on trampolines with the Hardy Boys. He had a long-time partnership with Joey Mercury. The two just seemed to follow each other everywhere. Were they brothers or something? He signed to WCW in its dying years, but then was released a year later due to budget cuts. Then he signed with ECW. Then he lost their contract because they went under. He actually wrestled in the last ever ECW TV match against Jerry Lynn. Well, there's an honour for you, Christian York. He signed a 3-year developmental deal with WWE, but he never got anywhere with them. What was he spending the 3 years doing? He lost to Zema Ion in a Gut Check match. It was actually a very impressive match, and the judges gave him 3 S's. I remember I even liked the match. Fair play to you, Christian York. He lost a world title match to Jeff Hardy the next week. He went from a Gut Check match to a world title match. Yes, it does help to know people in high places. He then challenged Bob Van Dam for an X Division title match at Genesis, but he lost. And then it all went downhill for poor Christian York. He just couldn't beat any of the stars because he just wasn't a star. He wasn't on the same level as them. He did have some okay moves and he can hang with the stars, but the second you put him in the ring with someone who wasn't a star, it was obvious. Christian York wasn't a star. So there we go. He had bad promos, and he looked like that hippie surfer dude off of The In-Betweeners. He was released in 2013, and wrestled on the independents for a bit. Seems to be retired now. Evan Markopoulos. Evan Markopoulos. Yeah, that's the guy. The only 18 guy. Well, he's 24 now. He was defeated by Douglas Williams in his Gut Check match. He didn't get given a contract. He wrestled in OVW for 2 years, just lying on his knees, begging TNA for a contract, but he never got one. He left in 2015. He did have a tryout for WWE in 2018, but that went absolutely nowhere. Did I mention he's still only 24 right now? Samuel Shaw. Probably my favourite TNA Gut Check winner. He lost his gut check match to Douglas Williams once again. He didn't do anything much for the first year, just wrestled in OVW. And then he suddenly started getting regular screen time in 2013, stalking Christy Hemme and wearing turtleneck jumpers. He had the weirdest ring attire. He had a feud with Mr. Anderson, and his finisher was the sleeper hold of doom. He then had an on-screen relationship with Brittany, aka Santana Garrett. He departed TNA in 2015, and in February 2019 he signed to a WWE developmental deal. Go on, Samuel Shaw. He was actually quite good and had a decent character. Joey Ryan. He lost to Austin Aries in his TNA Gut Check match. Then it was turned into a storyline. His storyline was that he said that most people wanted him to win the vote from the judges, and the judges were conspiring against him, focusing on Al Snow and Taz. It led to a feud between Al Snow and Joey Ryan. Joey Ryan fought Al Snow with a contract on the line. Joey Ryan would go on to win this match and get a TNA contract. Then he tag teamed with Morgan, and this went absolutely nowhere. He's since appeared in Glow, and he was with Lucha Underground, but as of February is pursuing legal action as his contract is restricting him from working with other wrestling organisations. And he's set to compete in Impact soon again next month, against a woman. Seems like a normal Joey Ryan match. Chris Louis. Chris Louis had a really sad story going into this. He was in poverty, his family hated him, he had no food on the table, he had like 20 kids, they were all starving hungry, and he had to wrestle to support them. Real heart-wrenching stuff, you know, you were kind of invested in this guy. Then he got in the ring and he sucked. He turned up very overweight. No wonder his family was starving. He'd been eating all the food! He lost to Gunner in his TNA Gut Check match, and then all the judges told him he sucked in front of his family at ringside. His face swelled up, and tears rolled out of his eyes. He had been completely humiliated on live TV in front of his family, his friends, and Gunner. He was the first competitor on TNA Gut Check not to get a contract. How humiliating for him. He then retired after this. He listened to the judges. He realised he sucked. I tried to see how this guy was doing nowadays, but I just can't find any sign of him. Chris Louis, if you're watching, I hope you're okay, man. Taylor Hendricks. Misdiagnosed with cancer at the age of 21. This is all anybody ever talked about at the time. She lost to Tara at TNA Gut Check, but she was actually awarded a contract. She was pretty decent and had some good character to her, and she looked quite nice. She barely appeared on TV for the next year, and then was released a year later. She joined ROH, and this is where it got interesting. She was doing pretty good, but then out of nowhere in 2018, there were claims that Taylor Hendricks lost her push in ROH because she said Jay Lethal wanted her to sleep with him, and she wouldn't do it. She just didn't fancy him. There was no way she would sleep with Jay Lethal. They slept together, I know it. Anyway, she disappeared from ROH not long after, proving that Jay Lethal was probably telling the truth. Topping off the list, it's Alex Silver. He was the first ever Gut Check winner, and this is the one with all the controversy surrounding him. He was 21 at the time, and he lost to Robbie E in his Gut Check match, so he can't have been very good. The judges just weren't impressed with him. They swelled their faces up. They lined up to tell him how bad he was. They all said that he wasn't going to get a contract. Ric Flair was there. Al Snow was there. Bruce Pritchard, I think? They all hated him. And then they gave him a chance to cut a promo, and he told them all about his hard life. And Ric Flair, he actually changed his mind. It was live TV at this moment, and voted yes, give this man a contract. They were screwed because Al Snow had already voted, so there was no way out of it. They had to give him a contract, and they were so annoyed with him. Flair had gone completely off the script. Alex Silver wasn't meant to win the contract. This was Ric Flair's last appearance in TNA. Alex Silver was walking around backstage thinking he was the bee's knees. He actually only ended up wrestling 2 matches for TNA, so it was a complete waste of time. They didn't even try with him. He apparently had an awful attitude and ignored Ric Flair, and that's not a good way to start out. He was a troubled guy. Anyway, where is Alex Silver right now? Well, he's in jail, of course. He disappeared in 2018. He's presumed to be in jail for drug dealing and other crimes, legal activities, selling stolen things. Alex Silver is in jail. So the moral of the story is, if you win TNA Gut Check, you will end up in jail. So that's the list. Thanks for watching. Next up, we're going to do something really crazy here. So make sure you keep staying tuned, hit the subscriber button, and no offence, if you don't hit the subscriber button, I'll be offended, so you better stay tuned.